I'm Abigail, 32, sitting at my family's Christmas dinner table, the air thick with the smell of roasted turkey and pine mingled with the faint sweetness of cranberry sauce. The room glows with candlelight casting soft shadows on the wallpaper, and laughter bounces off the walls as we gather for our annual tradition. I'm in my favorite red sweater, its wool soft against my skin, my heart full of hope, expecting warmth and gifts like every year. But something feels off, whispers and glances I can't quite place like a melody, just out of tune. I've got a secret, something big I've built on my own, a dream I've nurtured in quiet moments ready to share. Will they see me tonight? Will they finally understand, if you've ever felt invisible like you're shouting into a void? Where are you watching from? Hit like, maybe subscribe, and let's find out together. Dinner was over, and the dining room buzzed with that after-meal glow, the clatter of dishes mingling with the crackle of the fireplace. Plates were stacked, half-eaten pies sat on the table, their crusts crumbling, and the Christmas tree sparkled in the corner, piled high with gifts wrapped in shiny paper ribbons curling like promises. I leaned back in my chair, still in my red sweater, its faint itch grounding me, my stomach full, but my heart restless. The whispers I'd caught earlier lingered in my mind, soft murmurs behind hands, eyes darting away. I pushed them aside, eager for the gift exchange, a tradition that always made me feel tethered to this family, no matter how messy we got, no matter how often I felt like the odd piece in their puzzle. My sister Hannah, always the one to take charge, stood up, her wine glass catching the light, a stack of presents at her feet. She had that bossy charm, her blonde hair swept into a perfect bun, her smile sharp like she knew something you didn't, her perfume a faint floral sting. "All right, let's get to the good stuff," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter, smooth as the polished dining table. Everyone perked up, cousins and aunts, shifting closer to the tree, their faces lit with anticipation, their voices a soft hum of excitement. She handed the first gift to Caleb, my younger brother, who tore into the wrapping like a kid, paper rustling like autumn leaves. It was a sleek silver watch, the kind that screamed expensive, its face glinting under the chandelier. He grinned, holding it up to the light, and said, "Mom, Dad, this is amazing. Thank you." My parents. Diane and Robert beamed from their seats, Mom's eyes crinkling with pride, her pearl earrings catching the glow. I clapped along, happy for him, but my hands felt fidgety, twisting the edge of my sweater, waiting for my own moment, my pulse quickening with hope. Next, Hannah passed a box to our cousin Rachel, who squealed as she pulled out a designer scarf, all soft silk and bold patterns, its colors vivid against her dark sweater. "Oh my gosh, I love it," she said, wrapping it around her neck like a runway model, her laughter bright and infectious. The room filled with oohs and ahs, and I joined in, my smile genuine, but tight, my jaw aching from holding it in place. I glanced at the pile of gifts, still plenty left, their shapes uneven under the tree's glow, and told myself my turn was coming. It always did. But then Hannah moved on to Lucas, our teenage cousin, who got a shiny new gaming console, its box gleaming like a trophy. He pumped his fist, shouting, "No way! This is the one I wanted." The room erupted in laughter, warm and loud, and I laughed too, but my chest tightened, a knot forming under my ribs. I scanned the presents under the tree, searching for something with my name, my eyes straining in the dim light. Nothing. My fingers twisted together in my lap, the wool of my sweater catching on my nails, and I caught Hannah's eye, expecting her to nod my way to pull out my gift with a grin. Instead, she grabbed another box and called out, "Aunt Patricia." I froze, my breath catching the air suddenly sharp. Maybe they were saving mine for last, I thought, clinging to the idea like a lifeline. Maybe it's something big, something special wrapped in care. I'd always been the quiet one, the one who didn't demand attention. So I leaned into that now, keeping my face calm, my eyes bright, though my heart was thudding, a quiet alarm starting to ring, echoing in my ears. Hannah kept handing out gifts, her movements quick and confident, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. My Uncle George got a leather wallet, its stitching precise. My Aunt Sheila a set of fancy candles, their wicks unlit but promising warmth. Each unwrapping felt like a tick of a clock counting down to something I couldn't name, the sound of tearing paper like a pulse. I glanced at Mom, hoping for a reassuring smile, but she was whispering to Hannah, their heads bent close, their eyes darting away when I looked a secret I wasn't part of. My stomach twisted and I swallowed hard, the taste of pie lingering now bitter, telling myself it was nothing. Just a mix-up. I shifted in my chair, the wooden seat creaking under me, a sound that felt too loud in the festive hum. I tried to focus on the joy in the room, Caleb still admiring his watch, turning it over in his hands. Its ticks faint but steady, Rachel snapping selfies with her scarf, her phone flashing. But the air felt heavier now, the laughter sharper, like it was cutting into me. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing the childhood star ornament I'd hung on the tree earlier, its rough edges grounding me, its glitter catching faintly under my nails. I'd made it when I was 10, a lopsided thing of glitter and glue, but it was mine, a piece of this family I'd always held onto a tether to a time when I felt I belonged. Still no one called my name. The pile of gifts was shrinking, and my hope was thinning with it fraying like an old thread. I opened my mouth to say something, to ask Hannah if she'd missed me, but the words stuck heavy in my throat. What if I sounded needy? What if I ruined the mood? Dimmed the glow of this perfect night. So I sat there, my smile stiff, my hands clutching the ornament tighter, waiting for someone to notice me, my heartbeat loud in the quiet of my own head. The gift pile was nearly gone now, just a few stray ribbons and crumpled wrapping paper left under the tree, scattered like fallen leaves. My throat felt tight, the taste of dinner souring, but I kept my smile plastered on, nodding as my Aunt Sheila lit her new candles, their lavender scent curling into the air, mingling with the pine. Hannah was still in charge, tossing out presents with that commanding ease, her laughter sharp and bright, her earrings glinting with each turn of her head. I waited, my hands folded in my lap, the star ornament in my pocket, digging into my palm like a quiet warning, its edges sharper now in my grip. Finally, I couldn't hold it in. I leaned toward Hannah, keeping my voice soft, steady, though it trembled at the edges. Hey, did you miss mine? Is there something for me? The room didn't stop, but it felt like it did, the chatter pausing for a breath. Hannah turned her eyes, flicking over me like I was an afterthought, her lips curving slightly. She laughed, a quick, dismissive sound that echoed in my ears. Oh, Abigail, we must have forgotten you this year, she said, shrugging as if it was nothing, just a silly oversight, her hands brushing the air like she was swatting away a fly. My chest tightened like someone had pressed a cold stone against it, heavy and unyielding. I looked to Mom, hoping she'd correct Hannah, pull out a hidden gift, anything to undo this moment. But she just chuckled, her wine glass tilting in her hand, the red liquid catching the light. You're fine, right, Abigail? You've always been so independent. Her words landed like a slap, casual, but cutting her smile soft but empty. I forced a nod. My lips pressed tight to keep from trembling, my breath shallow. Independent. Was that code for invisible, for not mattering? I glanced at Dad, sitting at the head of the table, his eyes fixed on his wine, swirling it slowly, the glass catching the candlelight. He didn't look up, didn't say a word, his silence louder than the room's noise. Caleb was busy adjusting his new watch, its band gleaming. Rachel was still posing with her scarf, her laughter a distant hum, and Lucas was lost in his gaming console's manual pages rustling. The room spun on without me, their laughter and chatter a wall I couldn't break through, a tide pushing me out. I felt like I was shrinking, my red sweater too big, its sleeves swallowing my hands, my presence too small. I tried to speak again, louder this time, my voice fighting to be heard. Hannah, seriously, nothing for me. My voice cracked just a little, and I hated it, the vulnerability slipping through. She raised an eyebrow, her smile turning sharp, almost pitying. What, you're upset? It's just gifts, Abigail. Don't make it a thing. The way she said it, like I was overreacting, made my face burn, heat rising to my cheeks. I looked around, searching for an ally, my eyes pleading. Aunt Patricia caught my eye, her face softening, her hands twisting her napkin, but she didn't speak up. No one did. My fingers tightened around the ornament in my pocket, its jagged edges pressing harder, a faint sting against my skin. I thought of all the Christmases before how I'd always smiled through the small slights, the way Hannah's achievements were celebrated with cheers while mine were barely noticed, a nod at best. I told myself it didn't matter that family was more than gifts or praise, that love was in the being there. But now, with the tree lights glinting off empty wrapping paper, the table cluttered with their joy, it felt like a lie I'd been swallowing for years, bitter and heavy in my throat. I wanted to stand to demand an answer, to make them see me, but my legs felt heavy, glued to the chair, the wood creaking under my weight. Instead, I forced another smile, nodding like it was fine, like I wasn't unraveling inside thread by thread. But my heart was pounding, and a quiet fury was building, not loud or explosive, but deep, like a current pulling me towards something I couldn't yet name, a storm gathering in my chest. They thought they knew me, thought I'd just take this, swallow it like always. They were wrong. The dining room felt smaller now, the walls closing in as the last of the wrapping paper crinkled underfoot, the sound sharp against the fading laughter. I sat there, my smile brittle, the sting of Hannah's words still burning, her dismissal echoing like a bell. "Don't make it a thing," she'd said, like my hurt was a nuisance, a smudge on their perfect night. The chatter around the table picked up again, but it sounded distant, like I was underwater. The voices muffled the air, heavy with the scent of wax and wine. I kept my eyes on the tree, its lights blurring as I tried to hold myself together, my fingers still gripping the star ornament in my pocket, its edges now a familiar ache. Hannah, unfazed, launched into a story about her office holiday party, her voice loud, commanding everyone's attention, cutting through the room like a blade. "They flew in a chef from New York," she said, tossing her hair, the motion practiced, her earrings glinting. "Caviar, champagne, the works. My boss said I'm on track for VP next year." Mom leaned forward, her face glowing with pride, her pearl earrings catching the light, her smile wide and unguarded. "That's my girl," she said, her voice warm in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in years, a warmth that felt like it belonged to someone else. I swallowed, my throat dry, the taste of cranberry lingering, and tried to join in, to find a way back into the circle. "The turkey was great, Mom," I said, my voice softer than I meant, barely audible over the hum of voices. Hannah cut me off, barely glancing my way, her eyes sharp. "Oh, Abigail, you'd love the catering at my office. Way better than home cooking." A few cousins chuckled, their laughter light but piercing, and Mom nodded like it was a fact, her smile unwavering. "Your freelancing keeps you busy, doesn't it?" she said, her tone light but pointed like a needle. "Always tinkering with those little designs." Little designs. The words hit like a jab, my years of building a graphic design business reduced to a hobby, something small and fleeting. I forced a laugh, but my chest ached, a dull pain spreading under my ribs. I wanted to tell them about my clients, the brands I'd worked with, the empire I'd built from late nights, and grit the contracts signed in quiet triumph. But the words wouldn't come, stuck behind the weight of their assumptions, heavy as the oak table before me. Uncle George piped up, his voice gruff, a glass of whiskey in his hand, its amber glow catching the light. "Abigail, you still doing that artsy stuff? Must be tough scraping by like that." He laughed like it was a joke, but it landed like a brick, heavy and cold. I felt my face flush, my hands clenching under the table, my nails digging into my palms. Scraping by, I'd just closed a deal that would have made his jaw drop, but he didn't know. None of them did, and the ignorance stung more than the words. I glanced at the table, my eyes catching on Dad's old pocket watch, now sitting by Caleb's plate, its brass casing worn but beautiful, etched with years of history. It was a family heirloom passed down from Grandpa, a relic I'd always loved, its steady ticks a comfort in my childhood. I'd imagined it might come to me one day, a quiet nod to my place in the family. But there it was, given to Caleb without a word to me, its presence a silent rejection. My heart twisted, a sharp, quiet pain like a string snapping inside me. Did they think I didn't deserve it? Aunt Patricia tried to shift the mood, her voice gentle, her hands smoothing her skirt. "Abigail's always been so creative," she said, offering me a small smile, her eyes kind but cautious. But then she added, "You seem so content, dear. You don't need all this fuss, do you?" Content? The word felt like a trap, like they'd decided I was fine being invisible because I never complained, never demanded. I wanted to scream that I wasn't content, that I was drowning in their disregard, my voice lost in their noise. But I just nodded, my jaw tight, my teeth pressing into my lip. The room kept moving, their voices overlapping, stories of promotions and vacations and gifts piling up a tower I wasn't part of. I felt like a ghost sitting at the edge of their world, my own achievements locked away in my chest, unspoken, unseen. My eyes drifted to the tree again, its branches heavy with ornaments, their shine mocking the empty space where my gift should have been. The hurt was growing, not loud, but deep, like a crack spreading through glass, ready to shatter, its edges sharp and waiting. I sat there, the weight of their words pressing down, my breath shallow, the air thick with the fading scent of lavender and pine. The dining room's warmth had turned stifling, the flicker of candles casting jagged shadows across the table, their light dancing on the walls like a taunt. I tried to focus on the clink of glasses, the hum of conversation, but it all felt like static, drowning out my thoughts, a noise I couldn't escape. My fingers brushed the star ornament in my pocket, its edges sharp now, like it was cutting into me, a quiet pain I couldn't ignore. I wanted to disappear, but I was stuck, pinned by their indifference, my body heavy in the chair. I took a chance, turning to Hannah, my voice low but steady, though it shook with the effort. Why didn't I get anything? I asked, my eyes searching hers for something, anything to explain this, to make it less real. She paused, her wine glass halfway to her lips, the liquid trembling slightly, and gave me that sharp smile again, the one that always made me feel small. We figured you didn't care about gifts anymore, Abigail, she said, her tone light, but edged like I was silly for asking her, words slicing clean. You're always so busy with your little projects. Little projects? My stomach churned, the words slicing deeper than before, a wound reopening. I'd spent years building my business, pouring every spare hour into it, my hands stained with ink, my eyes burning from late-night screens, and she reduced it to a whim, a child's pastime. I looked to Mom, hoping she'd step in, say something to bridge the gap, but she just nodded, her eyes soft with pity, her pearl earrings glinting. Hannah's right, she said, her voice gentle but final, like closing a door. You've always been fine on your own. We didn't think you'd mind. Fine on my own. The phrase echoed, twisting into something cruel, a dismissal dressed as kindness. I minded. I minded so much, it hurt to breathe, the air catching in my throat. I glanced at Caleb, usually my quiet ally, but he was staring at his new watch, his fingers tracing its face, avoiding my gaze, his silence a betrayal of its own. Did he agree with them? Did he think I was just the sister who didn't need anything, who could be left out? I tried to keep my face neutral, but my hands were trembling now, hidden under the table, my nails digging into my palms, leaving half-moons in my skin. I thought of all the times I'd stayed quiet, let Hannah shine, let Mom's pride in her fill the room, her laughter, a melody I couldn't match. I told myself it was okay, that I didn't need their spotlight, that love was in the small moments. But this wasn't just about gifts. It was about being seen, about mattering. And they were telling me with every word, every glance away, that I didn't. Rachel was across the room, posting her scarf on social media, her fingers flying over her phone, the screen's glow lighting her face. I caught a glimpse of her screen, a caption gushing about family love, about how perfect this night was. Her words bright and careless. My name wasn't mentioned, not even a hint of me in the frame, my existence cropped out like an unwanted edge. It felt like I'd been erased, not just from the gift pile, but from their story of us, their version of family. I wanted to speak, to call them out, to make them hear me, but my throat closed up, the words trapped behind a wall of hurt. What could I say that wouldn't sound desperate, that wouldn't break the fragile shell I'd built? I scanned the room, hoping for someone to notice the hurt in my eyes, the way they burned, but Uncle George was laughing with Aunt Sheila, their voices a low hum. Dad was still lost in his wine. The glass nearly empty, and Patricia's soft smile had faded into awkward silence, her hands still. The photo on the mantel caught my eye, the one from last Christmas where I was half cropped out, my face blurred at the edge, a smudge in their memory. It wasn't an accident, I realized, my heart sinking. It was a pattern woven into years of being overlooked. My heart pounded, a mix of anger and grief swelling inside me, a tide rising in my chest. I wasn't just overlooked. I was dismissed like I'd never been part of their circle, a guest in my own family. The room spun, their voices louder now, their laughter a blade cutting deeper with each note. I gripped the ornament tighter, its points digging into my palm, and felt something shift inside me. A quiet rage I couldn't name yet building toward a breaking point. I wasn't ready to face a storm I couldn't outrun. The dining room was a haze now, the candlelight flickering like it was mocking me, its glow dimming as the wax pooled. I sat frozen, my heart hammering so loud, I thought it might crack my ribs, the sound echoing in my ears. Hannah's words. Mom's pity, the photo on the mantel, they swirled in my head, each one a weight pulling me under a current I couldn't fight. I couldn't breathe right, the air thick with their laughter, and my silence the scent of wine and wax overwhelming. My hand, still in my pocket, clutched the star ornament so hard I felt a sting like it had drawn blood, a sharp reminder of my place. Hannah raised her glass for a toast, her voice cutting through the noise, clear and commanding, her earrings glinting like tiny stars. To family success, she said, her eyes sweeping the room, landing on everyone but me, her smile wide and deliberate. To Caleb's new job, Rachel's grad school, Lucas's big dreams. She paused, her smile widening, her glass raised high. We're all making it, aren't we? The room cheered, glasses clinking, a chorus of agreement. But I felt like I was choking, the sound suffocating. Not one mention of me. Not one glance. Not even a flicker. Mom joined in, her voice bright, oblivious, her pearl earrings swaying slightly. Abigail's probably just happy to be here, she said, laughing softly like it was a sweet truth. Her words wrapped in kindness but sharp underneath. The room laughed with her, a ripple of amusement that felt like 1,000 needles pricking my skin. Uncle George snorted, his whiskey glass raised. Aunt Sheila giggled, her candles flickering. Even Caleb gave a half smile, his eyes still on his watch, its ticks faint but relentless. I was a punchline, a footnote in their perfect night, my existence reduced to a joke. My chest burned, my vision blurring, the tree's lights smudging into streaks. I stood my chair, scraping the floor, the sound sharp enough to make Rachel look up from her phone, her fingers pausing. Why do you all think I'm nothing? I said, my voice louder than I meant, trembling but clear, cutting through the room's hum. The room stilled, forks pausing, glasses hovering, the air heavy with sudden quiet. Hannah's smile faltered, but only for a second, her eyes narrowing. Oh, come on, Abigail, she said, her tone sharp, dismissive. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic. The word hit like a spark on dry wood, igniting something deep inside me. I felt my face flush, my hands shaking at my sides, my fingers curling into fists. Dramatic, I repeated, my voice rising raw and unsteady. You forgot me. You all did. And you're laughing about it. My eyes locked on Mom, then Dad, then Hannah, searching for something, anything, a hint of guilt, a flicker of care, a sign I wasn't invisible. But Mom just sighed like I was exhausting her, her napkin twisted in her hands. Dad looked away, his jaw tight, his wineglass empty. Hannah rolled her eyes, her lips a thin line. I stepped toward the tree, my legs unsteady but moving anyway, the floor cold under my feet. The ornaments glinted, mocking me with their cheer, their shine bright against the dark branches. I saw the star I'd hung earlier, my childhood creation, now dwarfed by shiny new baubles, its glitter faded but stubborn. It felt like a symbol of everything I'd been to them, small, forgotten, pushed aside, left to gather dust. My throat tightened and I wanted to cry, to scream, to tear the tree down, to make them feel this weight. But I didn't. I just stood there, my breath ragged, feeling the weight of their dismissal crash over me, a wave I couldn't outrun. A glass ornament slipped from a branch, hitting the floor with a sharp crack, the sound piercing the silence. The shards scattered, glinting like broken promises, and every head turned, eyes wide. I didn't move, didn't apologize. My gaze fixed on the pieces, my heart pounding, my mind racing with years of being unseen. They expected me to shrink back, to smile and let it go, to be the quiet Abigail they knew. But something inside me was breaking too, a dam cracking, and I wasn't sure I could hold it together much longer, the storm inside me ready to spill. The shattered ornament lay in pieces at my feet, glinting in the candlelight, sharp and scattered like my thoughts. No one moved to clean it up, their eyes on me, some curious, some annoyed, their silence heavier than their laughter. I stood by the tree, my breath uneven, my hands balled into fists, nails biting into my palms. Hannah set her glass down, the clink loud in the silence, a sharp note that echoed in my ears. She crossed her arms, her posture rigid. "Don't make a scene, Abigail," she said, her voice low, cutting her words, slicing through the quiet. "This is Christmas. Can't you just let it go? Let it go." The words ignited something raw inside me, a fury I'd buried for years, a fire that had smoldered too long. I opened my mouth, my voice shaking but steady, raw with truth. "Let it go. You think I can just smile while you all pretend I don't exist?" My eyes darted to Mom, who looked away, her fingers twisting her napkin into knots, her face pale. Dad cleared his throat, finally speaking, his voice heavy, deliberate. "Abigail, you're being too sensitive," he said, his tone like a judge's gavel, final and cold. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Too sensitive. The words were a gut punch, worse than Hannah's dismissal, a betrayal from the man who used to call me his little artist, who once hung my drawings on the fridge. I felt my chest cave, like the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving only the faint smell of wax and pine. I turned to Caleb, hoping for a flicker of support, my quiet brother who'd always understood me, but he just stared at the floor, his new watch glinting on his wrist, its ticks a steady reminder of what I'd lost. Even Rachel, usually chatty, was silent, her phone forgotten in her lap, her eyes wide but empty. I stepped back, my shoulder, brushing the tree, making the branches tremble, their ornaments jingling softly. "You don't even see me," I said, my voice cracking louder now, raw and unfiltered. "You never have. You give gifts, you toast to success, but I'm not part of it. Why?" My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not here, not now, my vision blurring with the effort. Hannah scoffed her lips, curling her eyes cold. "You're making this about you," she said, her voice sharp as glass. "It's just one night, Abigail. Stop acting like a victim." A victim. The word hung in the air, heavy, suffocating, a label I'd never worn but felt branded with now. I looked around, seeing their faces. Mom's pity, Dad's discomfort, Hannah's smirk, the cousins' awkward glances, their eyes darting away like I was too much to hold. It was like I'd been stripped bare, my worth laid out for them to judge and dismiss, my heart exposed and bleeding. I wanted to run, to hide, to escape the weight of their gaze. But my feet were rooted, my heart pounding with a pain I couldn't name, a grief too deep for words. I reached for my phone in my pocket, my fingers brushing the cracked star ornament beside it, its edges biting into my skin. I had something to show them, something they couldn't ignore, a truth I'd built in silence. But my hands shook too much to move, my fingers frozen, my breath ragged. The room felt like it was closing in their silence, louder than their laughter had been, a wall I couldn't break. I was alone, exposed, my heart split open with nowhere left to turn, the storm inside me raging, ready to burst. The room was a suffocating silence, their eyes pinning me like a specimen under glass, the air thick with the fading scent of lavender and wine. Hannah's smirk, Mom's averted gaze, Dad's heavy sigh. They all burned into me, each one a wound. But I wasn't breaking anymore. My fingers trembling against my phone steadied. As I pulled it out, the weight of my secret grounding me like an anchor in a storm. I'd been invisible long enough, my voice silenced, my worth ignored. My heart still ached, but something fiercer was rising, a quiet strength I hadn't known I had until now, a fire kindled in the dark. I stepped toward the TV, my movements slow but deliberate, ignoring the shattered ornament at my feet, its shards catching the dim light. "You think I'm a victim?" I said, my voice low, steady, cutting through the tension like a blade through silk. "Let me show you something." I connected my phone to the screen, my hands moving on instinct, muscle memory, from countless late nights pulling up the website I'd built from sleepless hours and relentless hustle. The logo of my graphic design agency filled the room, bold and polished, its colors sharp against the screen, a testament to everything they'd overlooked, everything I'd fought for. No one spoke. Hannah's glass froze halfway to her lips, the wine trembling, and Caleb's eyes flicked up from his watch, wide with surprise. I clicked through showing my portfolio logos for major brands campaigns that had gone viral, a client list that would make anyone's jaw drop, names that echoed in boardrooms. "This is what I've been doing," I said, my voice calm but firm, each word deliberate. "While you were handing out gifts, I was building this. $1 million contract closed last week. With a national retailer." My words hung in the air, solid, undeniable, like stones dropped into still water. The air shifted their faces, changing Mom's eyes wide, her pearl earrings still, Dad's mouth slightly open. His wine glass forgotten, Rachel's phone, forgotten in her hand, its screen dark. I kept going, my voice growing stronger, a steady current. "I didn't need your approval to make it. I did it alone." I clicked to a slide showing my team, a group of designers I'd mentored, their faces smiling from a recent project launch, their energy a light I'd chosen to surround myself with. "These people believe in me. They see me," I said, my eyes sweeping the room, holding theirs. Uncle George leaned forward. His whiskey glass set down, his brow furrowed his skepticism, a familiar weight. "You did all this?" he asked, his voice gruff but curious, his fingers tapping the table. I nodded, pulling up a contract on my phone, the numbers stark and undeniable, black ink on a white screen. "Signed and sealed," I said, holding his gaze, my voice steady as stone. "This is real." His skepticism wavered, and for the first time I saw a flicker of respect, a crack in his doubt. I turned to the room, my eyes sweeping over them, each face a piece of my past, my pain. "You thought I was nothing," I said, not accusing, just stating a fact, my voice quiet, but carrying. "But I've been building an empire while you were laughing." My chest felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried too long, a burden I hadn't named until now. I wasn't begging for their validation anymore. I was claiming my place right here in front of them, all my truth a light they couldn't dim. The TV screen glowed with my agency's latest project, a charity logo. I'd poured my heart into one for a cause my family always claimed to champion, its colors bold and warm, a beacon in the dim room. I let it linger there, filling the space, a quiet challenge to their assumptions, a mirror to their blindness. I turned to face them, my pulse steady now, my voice no longer shaking its strength earned through years of silence. "This is who I am," I said. Looking at each of them, Hannah's stunned silence, her glass still, Mom's wide eyes, her hands trembling, Dad's clenched jaw, his face pale. "I didn't need your gifts. I built my own empire." I walked to the Christmas tree, my steps sure the floor cool under my feet, and pulled the cracked star ornament from my pocket. It was rough glitter flaking, but it was mine, a piece of me they'd never bothered to see, a relic of a girl who'd dreamed big even then. I hung it on a branch high where it caught the light, its shine defiant against the newer ornaments. "This is my place, right here. Whether you see it or not," I said, my voice steady, each word a stone laid in a new foundation. The room was still, their breaths held my words sinking in like rain into dry earth. Hannah tried to recover, her voice sharp but unsteady, her confidence fraying at the edges. "So you're successful. Big deal." "It's just luck," she said, crossing her arms, her posture defensive, her eyes avoiding the screen. I met her gaze, unflinching, my voice even. "Luck," I said, my tone calm but cutting. "This is years of work, nights you never asked about, clients you never cared to know." I clicked my phone, showing a photo of my office walls lined with awards, a team I'd chosen, not inherited, their faces a testament to my vision. "This isn't luck. It's me." I turned to Mom, her napkin twisted tight in her hands, her knuckles white. "You said I was fine on my own," I said, my voice soft but firm, a truth I'd carried too long. "You were right. I am. But I wanted you to see me, not just assume I'm okay." Her eyes glistened, a tear catching the light, but I didn't wait for a response, didn't need it. I looked at Dad, his face pale, his hands still, and said, "I thought you'd be proud." I guess I was wrong. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, his silence a weight of its own. Rachel broke the silence, her voice small, hesitant. "Abigail, how did you do this?" she asked, her phone down. her eyes genuine wide with wonder. I softened just a fraction, my heart catching. "I worked," I said simply, my voice steady. I believed in myself even when no one else did. I glanced at Caleb, who finally met my eyes. A flicker of guilt there, a crack in his quiet. I didn't need his apology, not yet, but it lingered unspoken. I stepped back, my hand brushing the tree, its needles soft against my skin. The star ornament glinting above me, a small victory. "I'm not invisible," I said, my voice quiet but carrying, filling the room like a tide. "Not anymore." I let the words hang, my eyes locking with Hannah's, then Mom's, then Dad's, a silent promise to myself that I'd never shrink again. The room stayed quiet, their faces a mix of shock and something else. Maybe respect, maybe shame, maybe both. I didn't care which. I'd said my piece and it was enough, a weight lifted, a truth claimed. The silence in the dining room was heavy like the air before a storm, the candles flickering weakly now, their light barely holding. My star ornament hung on the tree, catching the dim glow, a small claim to my place, its edges worn but defiant. The TV screen still glowed with my agency's logo, its presence undeniable, a truth they couldn't unsee. I stood by the tree, my heart steady but raw, waiting for something to break the quiet, my skin prickling under their gazes. Their faces were a mix of shock and unease, and for the first time I felt the room tilt in my favor, the balance shifting however slightly. Mom spoke first, her voice faltering barely above a whisper. "Abigail, We didn't know," she said, her napkin crumpled in her lap, her fingers trembling. "Why didn't you tell us?" Her words sounded like an apology, but they felt thin, like she was grasping for an excuse, her eyes avoiding mine. I looked at her, my eyes steady, my voice soft but unyielding. "I tried." I said each word deliberate. "You weren't listening." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Her face flushed with something like guilt, her pearl earrings still reflecting the dim light. Hannah slammed her glass down, the sound sharp, making Lucas jump his gaming console, nearly slipping from his hands. She stood her chair, scraping the floor, a harsh echo, and stormed toward the kitchen without a word, her heels clicking angrily. Her absence left a void, her usual confidence replaced by something brittle, a crack in her armor. I watched her go, my chest tight, but not surprised, the air heavy with her retreat. She'd always needed to be the star, and I'd just taken the stage, my truth brighter than her spotlight. Caleb stood slowly, his new watch catching the light, its ticks faint but steady as he walked over his steps, hesitant. "Abigail," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, his eyes meeting mine for the first time that night. "I didn't know you were doing all this. I envied you, you know. You always seemed so free." His words caught me off guard, stirring something raw, a mix of warmth and pain. I saw a flicker of regret in his eyes. Something real. Something I wanted to believe. But the hurt was still there, a quiet ache beneath my newfound strength, a wound not yet healed. Dad pulled me aside, his hand gentle on my arm, his calloused fingers familiar, his face lined with something heavy, older than I remembered. "I underestimated you," he said, his voice, rough eyes glistening, catching the candlelight. "I'm sorry, kid." He hadn't called me kid in years, and the words stirred something in me, a memory of simpler days, a mix of warmth and pain. I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight. The weight of his apology heavy, but not enough to erase the years of being unseen, the moments he'd looked away. Rachel was still by the tree, her scarf forgotten, her eyes wide, scrolling through my website on her phone, the screen's glow lighting her face. "This is incredible," she said almost to herself, her voice soft with awe. Aunt Patricia nodded, her smile tentative, but warm, her hands clasped tightly. "You've done something special, Abigail," she said, her voice soft, her eyes distant but kind. But Uncle George just sipped his whiskey, his skepticism lingering, his fingers tapping the glass, and the rest of the cousins whispered among themselves, their glances unsure, their voices a low hum. I stood there, the room's energy shifting, their shock a quiet victory, a moment I'd earned. But my heart was still heavy, their apologies, and awe tinged with something hollow, like words spoken too late. Had they ever really seen me, Or was this just their guilt talking a reflex to my truth? I didn't know, and the uncertainty settled in my chest, cold and sharp, holding me in place as the moment stretched unresolved, the air thick with what wasn't said. The dining room felt colder now, the candles burning low, casting long shadows across the table, their light fading into the dark wood. My agency's logo still glowed on the TV, a quiet reminder of my truth, its colors steady against the flickering room. I stood by the tree, my star ornament swaying slightly, its glitter catching the dim light, and felt their eyes on me, some heavy, some fleeting, a mix of awe and discomfort. I wanted to hold on to the strength I'd found, but doubt crept in a whisper, asking if this changed anything at all, if their shock would last. Lucas broke the silence, his voice hesitant, his gaming console clutched tightly in his hands. "Abigail, can I see your office sometime?" he asked, his eyes bright with curiosity, his voice cutting through the quiet. I nodded, a small smile flickering unexpected warmth, softening the edges of my hurt. "Sure, Lucas," I said, my voice softer than I meant, almost gentle. Rachel sent me a text, her words quick, lighting up my phone. "Your work is amazing. I'm sorry." It felt genuine, but it stung too. A reminder of how little they'd known me, how much I'd carried alone. I glanced at the table where Mom was staring at her hands, her fingers still her napkin, a crumpled heap. She didn't look up, didn't speak again, and the absence of her voice felt louder than her apology, a silence that echoed in my chest. Dad sat back, his face unreadable, the pocket watch now in his pocket, a gesture too late to mend what was broken its weight, a reminder of what I'd lost. Aunt Patricia approached, her hand brushing my shoulder, her touch light but steady. "I've been there," she whispered, her eyes distant, carrying their own stories. "I was overlooked too. You're stronger than I was." Her words landed softly, a quiet connection, but they didn't ease the ache, the lingering pain of being unseen. Hannah hadn't returned from the kitchen, but I saw her shadow moving through the doorway, restless, her silhouette sharp against the light. Then my phone buzzed, a notification from her social media, a vague post about family drama and people who need attention. It was aimed at me, sharp and petty, a jab that twisted something in my gut, a reminder of her refusal to yield. I didn't respond, didn't need to. I'd shown them who I was, but her words still cut, a reminder that some things might never change, some wounds too deep to heal in one night. I decided then to leave my coat already draped over my chair, its fabric cool against my skin. "I'm heading out," I said, my voice calm, final, carrying over the quiet room. No one stopped me, though. Caleb's eyes followed me, a flicker of regret there, and Rachel gave a small wave, her scarf slipping from her shoulders. I walked to the door, my steps steady, the floor creaking under my weight, but my heart was heavy, carrying the weight of their shock, their half-spoken apologies, their silence. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel, the leather cold under my hands. The night dark around me, the stars hidden by clouds. I felt the quiet truth settle in. I'd changed the story, but not the ending. Not yet, not fully. A week had passed since the Christmas dinner, and I was in my apartment, the quiet hum of the new year settling around me like a soft blanket. I sat on my couch, a mug of coffee warming my hands, its steam curling up like a soft promise, the bitter scent grounding me. My place was simple. Just a few string lights casting a warm glow, a small potted plant on the windowsill, its leaves catching the morning light. But it felt like mine, a space I'd carved out without anyone's permission, a home built on my terms. The hurt from that night still lingered, a dull ache under my ribs, but it didn't own me anymore, didn't define the shape of my days. I opened my journal, its pages worn from years of late-night thoughts, the leather cover soft under my fingers, and started writing about the dinner. Not the pain, not Hannah's sharpness or Mom's silence, but what it meant to stand up, to show them who I was, to claim my voice. I traced the arc of my business from scribbled ideas in a coffee shop, the tables stained with espresso, to contracts that changed my life, their ink a testament to my grit. Each word felt like a step, not away from them, but toward myself, a path I'd paved alone. My phone buzzed, Rachel's name lighting up the screen, her message a small surprise. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then answered, Abigail. I'm sorry, she said, her voice small but earnest, trembling slightly. I didn't realize how much you'd done. Can I learn from you? Maybe visit your office? Her words caught me off guard, stirring something warm but cautious, a crack in the wall I'd built around my heart. Yeah, I said, my voice soft, almost a whisper. Come by next week. I hung up, staring at the phone, its screen dark now, feeling a crack in that wall widen, letting in a sliver of light. I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights blinking against the dark, their glow steady, unyielding. I thought about the years I'd spent proving myself, not to them, but to me. The nights I'd worked until dawn, the rejections that had stung but taught me to keep going. My empire wasn't just the money or the clients. It was the belief I'd found in myself, the kind no one could take away, a strength forged in quiet moments. I remembered the first client I'd landed, a small bookstore, their trust in me. A spark that kept me going. I set my journal down and picked up a photo from my desk, one of me and my team at our last project launch, our faces lit with laughter, paint smudged on our hands, celebrating a deadline met under a sky full of stars. I hadn't needed my family's approval to feel that joy. But I'd wanted it, craved it, and that wanting had hurt a bruise I'd carried too long. Now I was starting to let it go, to see that my worth didn't live in their eyes, their praise, their gifts. It lived in me and the work I'd done, the life I'd built. The coffee had gone cold, but I didn't mind its bitterness, familiar, comforting. I sat back, my breathing slow, and felt a quiet shift inside me, a settling of something long restless. I wasn't the girl who sat silent at that dinner table anymore, the one who smiled through the hurt. I was Abigail, 32, who'd built something real, something lasting. The pain was still there, but it was softer now, like a bruise fading under the skin, its edges less sharp. I wasn't healed, not yet, but I was ready to keep going, to walk my own path. I set the photo down and walked to my kitchen, the soft clink of my mug against the counter, grounding me its sound, a quiet echo in the still apartment. The city outside was quiet, just a faint hum of traffic, the occasional horn cutting through the night, and I felt a stillness I hadn't known in weeks, a calm that settled deep. I pulled out an old sketchbook from a drawer. Its pages yellowed, filled with doodles from my college days, their lines shaky but full of dreams. I flipped to a sketch of a logo, my first real design, crude but full of hope, drawn in a dorm room under a flickering lamp. It reminded me of who I'd been before the world weighed in, before their voices drowned out mine. My phone buzzed again, this time. Dad's name on the screen, a name I hadn't seen in weeks. I met him for lunch the next day at a small diner, the kind with sticky booths and coffee that tasted like home, its bitterness warm and familiar. He looked older, his hands fidgeting with a napkin, its edges fraying, his eyes tired but searching. I had dreams too, he said, his voice low, rough with memory. Never chased them. You did. His eyes held mine, heavy with regret, a weight I hadn't seen before. I'm proud, Abigail. I nodded, my throat tight, not trusting myself to speak the words, caught in a tangle of love and hurt. Back home, I opened my laptop and started planning a mentorship program for young artists, something I'd dreamed of for years, a way to give back what I'd fought for. I typed out the mission, my fingers steady, each word a promise to give others the chance. I'd clawed my way toward the screen's glow, a quiet companion. I didn't need Hannah's approval or Mom's praise anymore. Didn't need their validation to feel whole. I was building something bigger than their expectations, something that felt like mine, a legacy born from my own hands. I stood and walked to my bookshelf, pulling down a small wooden box, its grain smooth under my fingers. Inside was a new frame, simple but sturdy, and I placed it on my desk, empty for now, a space for something new. I'd frame something soon, maybe a sketch, maybe a letter to myself, a reminder of this moment. It didn't matter yet. I was learning to carry my own worth, not theirs, to hold it close like a light in the dark. I deleted Hannah's number from my phone, my finger hovering only a moment, the decision calm, not angry. It was clarity, a choice to let go of her shadow, to step into my own light. The room felt lighter, the air easier to breathe, the string lights casting a soft glow. I sat by the window again, watching the city settle into night, its lights steady, unyielding, and let the quiet wrap around me a gentle embrace. I wasn't running anymore, not from them, not from myself. I was here, steady, ready for whatever came next, my heart quiet but strong. 6 months later, I stood in my office, the hum of my team's chatter filling the air, a lively buzz that felt like home. The walls were lined with framed designs, their colors bold awards tucked between books and plants, their leaves catching the sunlight. I was 32. Abigail, no longer the woman who sat silent at that Christmas dinner, my voice buried under their noise. My desk held a stack of sketches, each one a step toward something new, their lines sharp with possibility. I'd built this place not just with contracts, but with belief, and it felt like home in a way. My family's table never had a space where I belonged. Today was a launch event for a new client project, a campaign I'd poured months into my hands, stained with ink and ideas. My team buzzed around me, setting up displays, their laughter light and real, their voices a chorus of shared purpose. Rachel was there, her eyes wide as she took in the space, her visit. A promise kept her notebook open, ready to learn. Caleb stood by the door, a shy smile on his face. His presence a quiet bridge we were rebuilding, step by careful step. Aunt Patricia lingered near a poster, her hands clasped, nodding with pride, her smile warm and steady. I stepped to the front, my hands steady as I faced the room, my shoes soft against the polished floor. "Thank you all for being here," I said, my voice clear, carrying a strength I'd earned, honed through years of silence and fight. This project is about more than design. It's about seeing what's possible even when no one else does, even when the world looks away. The words weren't just for them, they were for me. A reminder of the nights I'd doubted myself, the years I'd felt small, the moments I'd pushed through anyway. I shared the story of the project, how it started with a single idea sketched on a napkin in a moment of quiet defiance. The paper crinkled, but alive with possibility. The room listened, their faces open, their eyes attentive, and I felt a warmth I hadn't expected, not from their approval, but from knowing I'd done this for myself, for the girl who dreamed big. I glanced at Rachel, who was taking notes, her pen moving quickly, and Caleb, who clapped softly, his eyes meeting mine with something like respect, a quiet shift in our story. After the speech, I walked to the window, looking out at the city below, its light steady against the dusk, a tapestry of lives moving forward. The ache from that Christmas night was still there, faint now, like a scar that only hurt when pressed, a memory softened by time. I'd stopped waiting for my family to define me, to give me a place. I was enough, not because they saw me, but because I did, because I'd built something real. The room behind me hummed with life, voices and laughter weaving together, and I breathed slow, letting the moment settle, ready to carry it forward, my heart steady in its own light. Later that evening, after the launch event, I drove to my childhood home, the streets familiar but quieter now under the early summer sky, the air warm with the scent of blooming jasmine. The house looked smaller, its paint peeling slightly, its porch light casting a soft glow, a beacon in the dusk. I stepped inside, the air heavy with memories, the creak of the floorboards, a familiar song. The Christmas tree was still up, a family quirk we never explained, its branches bare but stubborn, holding on to tradition. I held a new frame in my hands. Simple wood, its grain smooth, holding a sketch I'd drawn years ago. A quiet promise to myself, its lines a map of who I'd become. I hung the frame on the wall next to photos of birthdays and holidays, my mark among theirs, a quiet claim to my place. Mom was there watching from the couch, her eyes softer than I'd seen in years, her hands still no napkin to twist. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice catching a tremor of pride and regret. We didn't hug, didn't need to, the moment enough, a step towards something new. I sat with her, the silence comfortable, warm like the glow of the porch light, and felt the weight of that Christmas night lift, not gone but lighter, a shadow fading in the sun. I thought about the journey since then, the way I'd learned to carry my own worth, to hold it close like a flame. It wasn't about proving them wrong or winning their pride, about being louder than Hannah or brighter than their gifts. It was about choosing myself every day, through the doubt and the quiet moments no one saw, through the nights I'd worked alone, the mornings I'd risen anyway. I'd built more than a business. I'd built a life where I belonged, not because of their approval, but because I'd decided I was enough a truth I'd carved from pain. The lesson wasn't loud or grand. It was this: your worth doesn't live in someone else's eyes, in their gifts or their praise. Pain can carve you open, raw, and aching, but it can also show you what you're made of, the strength you didn't know you had. I forgave them, not for them, but for me, because carrying anger was heavier than letting it go, a burden I no longer needed. I stood touching the frame one last time, its wood warm under my fingers, and felt a quiet peace settle in, like a breath I'd been holding for years, released at last. What moment made you realize your own strength? The time you saw yourself clearly. Share it below. I'd love to hear your story, to know what carried you through. If this resonated, maybe hit like or subscribe to join me in finding these truths, in building our own light. Share this if it moved you, if it spoke to your heart. Thank you for listening, for being here with me. Here's to healing, to moving forward together, one quiet step at a time.